Blog Talk Radio.
Last night I saw a lunar eclipse in the sky. Then something happened in my mind's eye. I saw you in a whole different light. Clearly, really, it's not that I want you to change. It's more that I want you to stay the same.
Oh, and I really want you to stay the same. I want you to stay right here with me for the next hour. I'm Bonnie D. Graham, a.k.a. Radio Red. Yes, we're red and curly, and we got copper highlights, and it's a beautiful day here in Durham, North Carolina. We haven't had rain for almost 22 hours, if that tells you what the weather has been like this summer. OMG. This is my little corner of the world on Monday nights. We call ourselves Read My Lips Radio, and you can't because we don't have video. It's radio, but if you've seen the logo, you know what they look like. So welcome, welcome, and I have the privilege today of introducing you to two very interesting, passionate, smart, insightful ladies. One is already an author. The other is in the process. I'll tell you about them in just a moment, but I have to do my obligatory and very, very happy shout-outs at the start of the show. Our most loyal listener, lovely, lanky Laura Legs. If you think that's a lot of L's, what can I say? Mwah to Laura. She's been with us for years and years and years, a dancing friend of mine in New York, and a new friend of the show, Margaret Welty, who is an artist, and she's going to be coming on in a couple of weeks. And I met Margaret in New York at the National Publicity Summit. That is where I met my two guests for today. So let me tell you who they are, and then we'll do the famous birthdays and all that good stuff. First up, lovely lady named Joffre McClung. I'm going to spell that. You really want to know how to spell it. Joffre, last name McClung, MC, capital CLUNG. She is asking the question, are you living your life on autopilot? Are you sleepwalking through life? She has two books. One is The Heart of the Matter. The other is the book. Joffre, what's the one you sent me that I read, the ebook today? I don't want to introduce you yet, but which ebook did I read?
How Learning to Say Goodbye Taught Me How to Live.
There you go. Thank you. You're not on the show yet. I've never done that before. I'm trying to roll it back to the first page. I read a very heartfelt book, and there are so many wonderful insights in the book. Yes, I cried. It's a story about multiple losses in Joffre's life, but there's a quote. She opens and closes the book with this. We won't necessarily be totally focusing on this, but I have to share this with all of you. During times of loss, you can discover who you were meant to be before time and the world made you forget. Unless you have experienced a significant loss, you have no idea how you will handle it. Loss has the potential to break us wide open or break us down. Great lessons and gifts if you do the work. Those are some of the themes in her book. I read it cover to cover. It's beautiful. We will also talk about her book, The Heart of the Matter. And Joffre says 5 years ago, she came out of what she calls the spiritual closet when she arrived at a crossroads after an intense 8-year period of loss. And that period of loss is described in the book I read. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Joffre McClung. Joffre, welcome to Read My Lips. How are you?
I'm doing great, Bonnie. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I have to tell everybody that I met you and Christine at the National Publicity Summit at the end of April in New York. I flew up for that event. Everybody knows I don't travel very much, but I had to be there. And I think you approached me after we had met, after I'd booked you for the show. I was walking out of the main ballroom at the Pennsylvania Hotel, and you said something to me like, we took an informal poll among us attendees,
yes.
Bonnie, in the group. And what did you tell me? Go ahead. What did you tell me, Joffre?
I told you that you were voted our favorite media person. From the minute you walked into that room, you captivated us. You made us laugh. You just took all the heaviness that had been in that room right out the window. You were charming. Now that I know you're a theater geek, now I know why. You're a theater person. But you literally were voted our favorite media person.
Well, that has never happened in about 10 years of going to the summit. And Joffre, you just lit me up. I really appreciated it. And I remembered you, obviously, and all the people I met that day, but you really impacted me. For those of our listeners who haven't heard the story, I'm invited as a media panelist, a media guest to the summit twice a year in New York. I used to live 25 minutes away. I'd hop on a train and be there. Now it's a plane ride and a bunch of Uber to get there. But I am one on usually Saturday morning. I'm one of about 20 media people ranging from journalists, independent writers, producers of major TV shows, local radio, nationally syndicated radio. We sit on a dais and we tell the audience, and Christine Upchurch and Joffrey McClung were in the audience that day. We tell them what it takes to get on our radar as far as getting an interview or something, getting us to write about you, put you on radio, TV with us. And I'm always the funny person on the panel. And Joffrey, I always get a kick. The person who sits before my turn and after me on the day is usually the one before says, thank God I went before Bonnie, and the one after says, damn, I have to follow that. I always have a couple of funny things to say, like, when you're on the radio, it's performance art. Be sure to wear your best underwear. And I don't think anybody ever forgets that one. So, Joffrey, thank you for the popularity poll. So, Joffrey, I have to say I was very touched by the book I read today. I know you have two books. I didn't realize I wasn't reading the main one. But talk to me about the book you wrote about your friend Rob. And you do mention the theme of loss. Let's talk a little bit about what compelled you to write a sad book, but a book about the revelations during the experience of loss that helped you see what's important to you. I have notes here about find your hidden beliefs, look for humor and laughter, find your angels, have a gratitude journal. Your friend Rob called it, and you called it Out of the Blues. Beware of martyr energy. Those are some of the things that stuck out to me in the book. So, Joffrey, give us a little bit of your background. What made you become a writer?
Well, I had been in television for about 15 years as a producer, and before that I'd been in theater too, Bonnie. I'm a theater geek too. So I had written some theater pieces. I wrote 2 films. So writing was sort of in my blood already, but I'd never written something as personal. Everything was a fiction, a lovely story. Go for your dreams, always about going for your dreams, something uplifting. And then I hit that period of 8 years of loss when my mother got cancer. I suddenly had to leave New York, come back home, take care of her. She passed, then my aunt passed, my uncle passed, then my best friend, really my soul sister, got breast cancer, stage 4. I hit the floor. It was so much loss after loss after loss. Yeah. And here I was in Texas, someplace I'd not expected to be again. I had given up New York, my beautiful, lovely garden apartment. My job was I left my job. And I couldn't lift my head up, Bonnie. And I was trying to help Robin deal with this terminal disease. And we had been in theater together. We'd been in school at UT in Austin as theater people. Like I said, we've been friends for 30 years. So I needed something because everybody else had died. I was still trying to help my friend, but I knew I needed to start to dream again, to start putting my foot in front of the other foot. And I tried to write a script. I thought, well, I'm going to write another script. I love writing scripts. I couldn't do it. Every time I sat down, it felt trivial, to be honest. Here's my friend Diane. I'm trying to write a comedy or an uplifting little screenplay. And all of a sudden, I just got that hit. Write what you're going through. Write what you're going through and write what you're learning. Because my friend and I, we had been meditating for 30 years and doing inner explorations and all that inner work. So we were still doing that while she was battling this cancer because it kept us focused. We said, okay, what's the lesson here? How can we keep growing in love? So I started to write about that, really the background of her, her story of going through. She was going through, but what we were doing to move through it. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. And Joffrey, I'm so grateful that you're sharing that you wanted to write a play about it, but it seemed trivial. That's such a realistic, such an authentic thing you just said. I don't use the word authentic. I don't bandy it around. But the fact that you looked at it and you said, no, this doesn't feel right, that was a real reaction, and that's important. Those of us who do write, and I've written 3 romantic comedies, and they, of course, are informed by who I am, my experiences, what I observe, me reacting to, responding to, experiencing it, and what I observe other people going through that I think they're experiencing, because we really never know. I appreciated how much you put into that book. You decided to write it as chapter upon chapter. There were, I think, 25 chapters in the book. The chapters are brief. They're like little vignettes, almost mini plays, Joffrey. I was very intrigued. And then you just stop, you take a breath, you step just to the side, and you put a list of questions asking the reader to look and say, have you experienced this? What does this mean to you? How did you decide that format? Because I like the fact you didn't just barrel us through this very sad story. You just said, stop, wait a minute. There are some lessons in here. Let me share with you, the reader, what I've experienced and ask you if this impacts you, if this resonates. So how did you come up with that formula for the book?
I wish I could say it was a grand plan, but it really wasn't, Bonnie. I have to tell you. I really wish I could say, yes, Bonnie, that's exactly how I did it. I was thinking of other people. Really, I just sat down and started writing and journaling. I was just going to journal it. And because I was going through it in real time, the book is written during her last 6 months, just before I went to LA to get her. So the chapters are brief because I was sharing private stuff, and that was new for me, to be honest with you, Bonnie. It's very private stuff. So I wanted to share and yet not tell too much of her stuff because I don't really have the right to tell her story either. So I wanted to tell enough, but I thought, well, the one thing I'm comfortable talking about is a little bit of our homework, which is where those questions appeared. Did not plan it because at the end I thought, well, okay, we just talked about the lesson of, being in control, having to control everything. That's one of the lessons in the chapters. And I thought, well, if you're not going through loss, you still do that. It still impacts your life. So I came up with the 4 to 5 questions so people could say, where do I control? What does that say about me? That sort of a thing. So it just really sort of happened, Bonnie, to be honest with you. I didn't plan that book at all. I got to be honest. I did not plan that book. It just sort of poured out slowly.
Yep. And that's what happens. Sometimes when we write and we're comfortable with the ideas pouring out, and with, maybe some people say it's your role or your job to just record what's coming out. I know when I write plays and I write dialogue, what would she say next? I just pick up my keyboard or my mouse or whatever. It just goes. It flows. It's either in you or it doesn't. And I think those are the best ones. With your permission, Joffrey, I want to read a few of the chapter descriptions just to give the listeners an idea of how you put this together. Is that all right with you?
Oh, of course, of course.
Okay, so there are the lessons learned in here. Chapter 1, you say, feel your emotions, all your emotions, especially those emotions you don't want to identify with or own. It is those unwanted or unacceptable emotions that will leak into your reality and keep you prisoner or worse. That's like a whole book in itself, Joffrey. That's a whole lesson plan right there. Then number 2, you say, you cannot be loving or compassionate toward another if you are not first loving and compassionate toward yourself. So beautifully put, Joffrey. We often see it as self-love. We see it phrased differently. I haven't seen the phrase compassionate toward yourself. That's a new one for me. And then I'll just read one more. Chapter 4, control is the ego's answer to all dilemmas, big and small. Surrender is the higher self's answer. Let's focus on that one for a minute, if you don't mind, Joffrey. Talk to me about the higher self. You described it in the book. I'm going to say for the lay person, what is a higher self? How do we know if we have one, if we found one? Who is that?
Well, first of all, everybody has one, Bonnie, so you don't have to go looking or buy one. You already have one.
Oh, thank you.
It is simply, so don't worry about that. It's not an issue of money. It's the part of you, the best way to say it, it's the part of you that knows it is connected to the divine and has all that wisdom and power of the love of the divine. I didn't say it as easily as I wrote it in the book, I think. But it's that part of you that knows it's a piece of the divine and has that wisdom and that love of the divine to use in the world. So you want to connect in that part of you that has that higher wisdom. Some people call it intuition. Some people say it's your higher wisdom. I don't really care what label. I call it higher self. Somebody else may call it an angel. I don't care. But it's that part of you that remembers the higher part of the divine, the wisdom and the love. So you want to connect into that because it tells you to relax. Relax. Don't control it. Relax. And it always has an easier path than your ego. Your ego will choose the worst path for you every time, even though it will be telling you in your head, this is what you have to do to be safe. But your ego is really not your friend, Bonnie. It really is not your friend. Does that make any sense for you?
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And how do people respond when they hear you say that, Joffrey? Your ego is not your friend. A lot of people, well, my ego, that's what my self-worth is in there, my identity is in there, my strength, my backbone, my ego is going to protect me. And you're saying, no, 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 no. Do you get met with some pushback when people hear you say that?
Well, these days, not so much. Now, 20 years ago when we were talking about it, Rob and I, my friend in the book, we talked about it. We were called, the New Agers, the weirdos, the, whatnot. Nowadays, it's a lot more mainstream. You talk about your negative ego, or you talk about even higher self has become a little bit more mainstream. Your negative ego, people know what that means. People are saying, I want to be my authentic self. They don't always know what that means, but the fact they're saying that is a big change from 20 years ago. So I don't get a lot of pushback because I also know sort of who I'm talking to. So I change the verbiage for whoever I'm talking to. Because, like I said, I'm not stuck on the labels. It's about the intention behind it. Spread a little love, a little light. That's all I care about, not whether you use my, terms or my verbiage, like I said. So I really don't get that much pushback, to be honest with you. I might later.
Very interesting.
I don't.
You might. I didn't want to scare you. I was intrigued with martyr energy, and I do want to talk about the heart of the matter in a minute, but you mentioned in the book martyr energy. What is that?
Okay.
It sounded so interesting. What is it?
Well, now this is how I define it. Everybody defines something different, so I just want to say this is my version. Everything in this book is my version. It's not, don't quote it, per se that it's expert. It's my version. The martyr energy, and I lived with several of them, so I know that energy very well. It's if I do this, if I work hard enough, do enough for someone else, do all of this, then I'll get some love back. Then I can get some happiness back. If I sacrifice enough, if I put myself secondary enough, if I show everyone how hard I'm doing this, then I'll be returned with some love or attention or affection. It's that martyr energy. Women tend to have a little bit of it in general, not all of it.
You think?
But my mother was very good at it, and that was one of the things she regretted into her life. Robin, as you know in the book, total martyr energy. I'll be happy when my partner's happy. When my partner's well, then I'll take care of my body. Everything was about making sure everybody else, and that's a martyr energy. And it really has to do with lack of self-love.
The nurturer. Martyr but you ran up against that because you were very good to Rob. You call her in the book Robin. You helped her with her bills. She was almost penniless at the end. She was worried about money. You even yelled at her at one point. Why? You wanted to buy her a nice set of sweats. She was going into hospital. She didn't have some decent clothes. You called her from Target. We call it Target in New York. And you said, I want to buy. Yeah. I don't have any money. It's like, shut up. But anyway, you went into you retreated. She said, I have never felt loved by anybody. And you went into that martyr energy mode. You admitted in the book, Joffrey, and you said, wait a minute, everything I did for her over the years as her friend, I stood by her, I helped to finance her, I made sure she wasn't without anything, I flew across country, I brought her back, I introduced her back to her family, and she's telling me she never felt love from anybody. It hit you square between the eyes. Was that okay for you to react that way? Yeah, I know. Was that okay for you to react that way? Or were you beating yourself up? Oh, I can't.
No, go back to the first chapter. Feel your emotions. That was the emotion I was feeling in that moment in Target. I was literally like, oh, my God.
Yep.
And I, got the clothes. I did whatever. I went home, and then I thought, what's going on here? And I realized I got snappy with her at Target because she had just said that a day before, that I never felt loved. And I hadn't processed it. Because I was busy, trying to keep things moving, go get her stuff. I'm going to try to write this book. And I hadn't taken that moment to feel my emotions, and my emotions was hurt. I was hurt.
Yeah.
She did not feel loved to what I had done. And that went into martyr because I hadn't owned my emotion. Once I went and looked at it, I said, wait a minute. I didn't do this to get her to tell me that she felt loved. I did this because it felt good for me to do it because I love her. And once I found my way back to the truth of why I did it, I was out of martyr. Because you can't make someone accept your love and feel it. All you can do is be honest with yourself and say, I want to give it to you, whether you want it or not. You do with it, whatever you like. But when minute you want something back, then you're going into martyr. And yeah, I went to Marta for a moment because I was shocked. And again, Robin was my best teacher. So, I mean, thank you for that, because I needed to see, how quickly I went to Marta on that one.
Very interesting. I have to mention something here. You might think, listeners might think, oh, Joffrey wrote a book about the end of her best friend's life and all the years they were together and how much she meant to her. You really made it very honest. There is a segment in there, Joffrey, where you say you went to her apartment. You said you looked at it objectively. You put this in the book, and I took a step back and said, really? You said it hadn't been taken care of in years. It was in horrible condition, and it wasn't just since Robin had gotten sick. You said the clothes were ancient, the place was in decrepit condition, the air conditioners barely worked. It was a horrible place. But filthy, and you said that. You came out and said that. And I was thinking, oh, she's writing this beautiful story about the end of her dear friend's life, and it's going to be, we're going to see little halos and little birds dancing over it. And she lived in a beautiful place. And you just poured it all out there on the page, and you basically said, what a disgusting place. How could anybody live there? What did it take for you to be that honest in the book, Joffrey?
Well, now I'm embarrassed because I'm not sure I knew that. I tell you, the way I wrote it, to be honest, again, it was so new to me to write something that was not fiction and to share this. I wrote it almost like a reporter, if that makes any sense, like I was reporting the news. Because I didn't want to, I was in such pain, because she was dying during the writing of it. I mean, the last chapter when she died, I wrote it when she died. I went into that reporter mode. And I thought, here are the facts, people. Here's the facts, ma'am. Here's what's going on. And I'm going to give you the information so that when you're going through loss, sort of the cliff notes, if you're going through loss or pain, here's some things you might want to look out for to stay awake and conscious so you can keep choosing love over fear, because that's the main goal of it, keep choosing love over fear. And then the other thing is the two of us. One is choosing not to have self-love, and one is. So I really wrote it like a reporter. So I just had to say what I was seeing. Now that you said it like that, I'm sorry that I shocked you.
That's okay. I like to be shocked. It wasn't sugar-coated. Go ahead.
She did find love at the end when she went home to her father, who she hadn't seen in 22 years, and how much love was there. And really, it's a triumphant story, because Robin, she felt loved at the end. She let love in at the end finally. So she was healed in a different way than she expected. Just wanted to throw that in there.
But Joffrey, you're the one who led her back to her family. You're the one who reconnected her to Chris, her brother, and to her dad. She was saying, no, Dad, since Mom died, her mother had died. Since Mom died, Dad says he wants to be alone. He doesn't want anybody there. And she basically felt rejected. You connected the dots. You went to Chris, the brother. You said, is your father really not wanting Robin to go home to him, because we all know she's not going to be around much longer? He connected the breadcrumbs and found out Dad would love to have Robin literally come home before she comes home. I'm sorry. It's just the metaphor.
That's okay, sweetie.
Hit me. And anyway, and I love the way you climbed out of whatever your comfort zone was. You had the wisdom to say, I'm going to put this family back together. I'm going to help Robin know they love her. They want her. She's safe to go home. And you did all of that. I can't say thank you for doing it. All I can say is that I admire you. I admire you, Joffrey.
Well, I don't know if I deserve it, but I will. Just when you love somebody, you know them for so long, that, and we've done homework together, right? We were doing homework. How do we grow in self-love? How do we keep growing in this inner work? And I thought, well, one thing you're going to have to grow in is you're going to have to let that family back in. And I just knew that, because she said, let me come. I was only an hour from her dad's house. And I knew that was a backup. If there really was an issue and she really did not feel loved or safe there or cared for or whatnot, I could go and get her, and I promised her I would do that. If it was uncomfortable after a week or so, she could come to my house. I didn't, I wasn't looking forward to doing hospice again. But I had to have that back. But I knew she needed to see that family. Something about it just told me she needed to have that. And she also had the backup of me. So I knew she could be safe if it really was horrible. And you know what? It was wonderful. It wasn't horrible at all. Her father was delightful and loved her, and she let it in. After 22 years, these people needed to be together. Good Lord, people.
You knew.
you knew. And
You knew, and it comes through in the book. I'm going to stop crying now. You touched so many chords in me. My mom at 100, still living on her own, completely independent and wonderful, passed away in my arms a year ago, March 17th. And you mentioned angels, the people who pop up around the event, and there were so many angels at the hospital when we prolonged her life just long enough to find out what we needed to know. And they just kept popping up and coming into my sphere. And I actually sat down today, Joffrey, and I remembered the angels I hadn't realized who were there. So thank you for helping me just go back. I'm still grieving because I didn't really. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So before we got about 3 minutes before we bring Christine on, but tell me the heart of the matter. Just give me an encapsulation of what is that book all about, since I didn't read that one. Tell me about that.
That's all right. I'm going to tell you real quickly. It basically was born out of that first book, out of How Learning to Say Goodbye Taught Me How to Live. Those lessons we talked about, they're all in the second book, and I tell you how to do them, how to get to them, how to use exercises, discussion, meditations, how to find your way back to self-love, how to let go of control, how to look at your behavior is coming out of your lack of self-love, how to find forgiveness, how to find that self-compassion, that self-understanding. In other words, how to take that self-discovery journey and become your own healer and teacher and guide and champion that's inside of you, how to become that yourself. That second book is really the answer to the first book, when I realized, well, I just gave you little cliff notes. Now I probably need to tell you how to really do it. So the second book really tells you how to do it, how to get back to self-love, how to stay out of martyr, why you're in martyr, why you're in control, how to work with your higher self, everything we just talked about. It's all explained in the second book.
I'm going to read it. That was fine. We weren't really in that much of a hurry. I will tell you that when my mom was in medical ICU, they gave us a suite, Lee Joffrey. It was a huge room. It had a couch with pillows for me to rest and be there in the room with her. And I didn't realize it, but a bunch of medical students approached me, and they asked me to tell them all about my mother's life. And we sat in the hall, and I told them, and I didn't realize. And I said to them, I'm from a family of doctors, of physicians, my daughter, my father, my uncle, and I said, where are you all heading? What career choice are you making? What specialty? But they said, tell us about your mom. I just realized it today when I read your book, that in addition to the chaplain who sat outside that room for 20 minutes, this very handsome man of color in this gorgeous blazing sports jacket and a magnificent orange tie, yellow tie. And he came in and I said, can I help you? And he said, I'm a chaplain. And I said, well, you're probably not Jewish, but I am. He said, I'm here for all denominations. And we talked and he helped me work through letting go. He was an angel. I'm so sorry to cry, but you brought back. And the nurse who was
you're talking to the person that would tell you to cry till you can't cry anymore.
Listen, the nurse who was assigned to thank you. The nurse who was assigned to my mom's case had lost her own daughter the year before, and she was just filled with love and empathy. She talked to my mom, who wasn't even there anymore. Ruth, we're going to change your gown. Ruth, we're going to give you a bath. She talked to her. Never seen anything like love in my life, Joffrey. Anyway, I'm done with the tears. We are going to move the show on a little bit because Christine Upchurch is waiting so patiently. But Joffrey, wonderful to speak with you. Loved your first book. I will read the second, but we have to tell people where to find you. What's your website?
It's JoffreyMcClung.com, or you can go it'sallaboutselflove.com. It's allaboutselflove.com.
Selflove.com. I'm going to spell your name again because I want people to go there. Christine, don't say a word. I've turned your mic on. It's open, but we have to do the formal introduction to you, Christine Upchurch, so don't make a peep. So Joffrey McClung, Joffre, McClung, all one word together, MCCLUNG.com. I want you to all go there and see what she's all about. Joffrey, you got to me, kid. You really did.